Hi, I'm Jill from Friends on the Block. In this video, I continue our series called How to Teach Anyone to Read and Have Fun While Doing It. I'll be explaining how to teach something called phonemic awareness, which is super important. Students who have poor phonemic awareness struggle in learning how to read, and until they learn phonemic awareness, they continue to struggle. In fact, if I could go back in time and change just one thing about my first years of teaching, it would be knowing how to teach phonemic awareness. Unless someone has already shared with you about phonemic awareness, then this skill is probably going to be unfamiliar and seem strange. But we're going to go through it step by step, and we're also providing free, fun materials you can use to teach it. Our goal at Friends on the Block is to help ensure that everyone, regardless of disability or circumstance, learns to read. We do this in ways that are meaningful, efficient and effective, and friendly. And by friendly, we mean our materials are easy to use and fun. I'm going to explain phonemic awareness by describing several objectives. These are the things that we want the student to be able to do after practicing. So in the first one, the student will orally blend the first sound of a word with the rest of the word. Notice the word orally. These objectives are done without the student looking at any print. The student is just listening and then speaking. So in this first one, the teacher is going to say the first sound of a word, and then she's going to say the rest of the word. So for example, s, un. And then the student is going to blend those together to make the word sun. So the student says sun. In the second objective, the teacher is going to say the entire word, and then the student's only going to say the first sound. So in that example, the teacher would say the word sun, and then the student says the first sound, s. Remember that the student is listening and then responding. Students practice blending and segmenting with these two skills in levels 1 and 2 of Friends on the Block. In level 3, students begin to practice doing these same skills of blending and segmenting, but now they're going to be doing them phoneme by phoneme or sound by sound. I'll demonstrate that with the same word sun. Remember that students not looking at the word sun. They're listening to the words and the sounds. So in the first example, when the student is going to orally blend, the teacher provides the 3 individual sounds. S, n. And then the student says the whole word, sun. So the student is blending those sounds. And then when the student segments, the teacher is going to provide the whole word, sun, and then they're going to ask the student to say all the sounds in that word. So the student is going to say s, n. This slide shows that same progression of skills that I just explained. So in levels 1 and 2, we're focused on the first sound. So when they blend, they're going to blend the first sound with the rest of the word. The word we use in education for that term is rhyme. So we're going to blend the first sound and the rhyme. The rhyme is the rest of the word that happens after the consonant. It's the vowel and everything that follows it. So the example here is with the word mat. So again, the students are listening. They're not looking at the printed word mat. They're just listening. So the teacher is going to provide at. And then the student blends it together saying mat. Same thing over here, except the inverse. We're still working on the first sound. The teacher is going to say the whole word, and then the student's going to say the first sound. So the teacher says mat, and the student says the first sound is mm. And then in level 3 of Friends on the Block, we move to phoneme by phoneme. Here the student blends all the phonemes to make the word. So the teacher says each phoneme. So the teacher says at, and the student says mat. And then segmenting is going to be the inverse. The teacher says the word mat, and then the student provides each of the phonemes or sounds. So the student would say at. Now you'll notice in levels 4 and 5, where we're headed later, is we will link these skills to print. So the reason students are learning how to blend sounds is so when they see the print, they can sound out a word. So they see the letter M and they're going to say they see the letter A and they'll say ah, and they see the letter T and they'll say t, at, mat. So the student will learn how to sound out. But before we do that with print, we practice that with just the sounds in words. And then the inverse of that with segmenting is that's leading up to spelling. So here the child wants to spell the word mat, so the first thing they're going to do is break it up into its sounds or segment the word. So they're going to say at, that's the letter M. Ah, that's the letter A. T, that's the letter T. So they can spell that word out. So the whole reason for learning phonemic awareness is to lead to decoding or sounding out words and spelling. And spelling is based on listening to those sounds and matching the letters or letter patterns that go with those sounds. Now I'm going to provide you with the basic steps for practicing each of these skills. So the first objective that we're going to go over is blending the first sound with the rest of the word or the rhyme. So here's what the teacher would say. I will say the sounds in a word. Then you will say the word. Ought. Say the word, and then the child would say not. The next objective is saying the first sound of a spoken word, or segmenting. Again, we do this in the first 2 levels of Friends on the Block. So the teacher would say, I will say a word, then you will say the first sound in the word. Say the first sound in not. And then the student would just say, When the student has practiced for a while with the first sound and the rest of the word, blending and segmenting that, then you can move to blending sound by sound. And blending sound by sound, the teacher would say, I will say the sounds in a word. Then you will say the word. Listen. T. Say the word. Not. You'll notice here that I held out the sounds of those first 2 letters. So the n, are both continuous sounds and you can stretch them out. And then the T sound, or the sound that goes with the letter T, has to be quick. T. The last objective is to say each sound in a spoken word. And again, we start doing this and practicing this at level 3. So the teacher would say, I will say a word. Then you will say each sound in the word one at a time. Listen, not. Say the sounds, and then the student would say t. When you're practicing blending and the student struggles, you want to immediately start the correction procedure. If they start struggling within 2 to 4 seconds, you want to jump in and just show them how to do it. That's really all the correction procedure is just showing them how to do it. So you're going to say listen, and you're going to repeat the word, and then the student's going to say that word with you, and then the student's going to say it by themselves. Now, if you want to, you can also choose to really model exactly how you blend those together. This is really helpful if you're using a word that has lots of continuous sounds, like the word not. So if you say and they don't know what the word is, then you can model that and model the stretching and connecting. So let me show you how that's done. Not. So you noticed how I no longer stopped between the sounds. Not. So I'm scaffolding or helping them do it. And you can even say it faster. Not. Not. Now say it with me. Not. Not. So the students can do that with you. If the students are struggling with segmenting, then you're going to model that as well. You're going to tell them what they should have said. So then you're going to say the sound. So if they're segmenting the word not, then you would say t. And the students would say those sounds with you, and then they would say them by themselves. And you want to be sure to correct those errors quickly in just 2 to 4 seconds. You do need to select words carefully for phonemic awareness practice. I'm going to provide you with a list of words that you can use, so you don't have to select your own words. But if you want to select your own words, I do have a couple of tips for you. If a student is struggling, you should choose easier words to blend and segment. Words that begin with continuous sounds are easier to blend and segment. So C is easier than B. Sat is easier than cat. because C and sat, you can stretch that first sound out and make it easier to hear it and segment it. Words that have fewer sounds, of course, are easier to blend and segment than words that have more sounds. So C is easier than seat. Fat is easier than fast. It's also helpful to choose words that are familiar to the student. Familiar words are easier to blend and segment because students can recognize that word and they know what that word means. Choosing familiar words also helps build links between the sounds and meaning. In the previous video about teaching letter sounds, we went through how to pronounce sounds, and I referred you to this wonderful video that Holly Lane has done that is on the University of Florida's literacy website. So I'll post this website for you below. As I said in the beginning, we're going to be providing you with some materials, and the materials we're going to provide are this sounds bingo game. It'll actually be 3 games, one for level 1, one for level 2, and one for level 3. Right now, I'm going to go over the words that the students practice with in our games. So in level 1, you can see the words that are there. Each of these words has a picture that goes with it that's on the bingo card. When the students practice blending, you provide the first sound and the rest of the word. So you would say b, air, and the student would say bear, and then they find it on their card. K, ache, k, orn, ips, d, uck, f, ish. Now you notice when I did fish, I stretched out the F. I've got it bolded here, and I also have the letters down here listed that represent sounds that can be stretched. So it's really helpful to stretch those sounds. You can say f, ish, where I paused very briefly between the first sound and the rest of the word. Or you can even model connecting those for the students if they need it. Fish. And then they say fish. Orc. Am. J. Am. Ilk. So you see how it goes. But the ones that you can stretch are bolded here. The and then the s in Sam, sh in sheep. And all of these are words that are associated with our books. So Sam is a character in our book. We have the theme of food, so you see some different food items. So we've made these a list of meaningful words, particularly if you're reading our books with your student too. In level 2, we have some different words. We have words that go along with the books that are in level 2. B, all, b, e, and then the f, the the s, and the z can all be stretched. You do want to be careful that the sounds that are stop sounds, that you say those really quickly and that you do not add at the end of it. So it's not b and k and duh. It's b, k, d, g, g, and p, p. It's not p, but p for pig or p, ark. These are the words in our level 3 game. There's some different spellings here that look like pretty complicated spelling for beginning readers. But remember, the students are not looking at the spelling. They're only listening to the words. So like the word leash, as we have a story about a dog and they're being walked on a leash. Leash. It just has 3 sounds, even though it has 5 letters. So leash. I'm going to model these for you because it really is important that you say the sounds the way they're pronounced within words. B, ed, b, e, k, ache, k, at, d, og, d, ish. Now again, if your students are struggling to blend those together, you can connect them. Fish, fish, and even say them faster and faster. Fish, so they can hear what that word is. G, aim, g, oat, l, ish, ad, ug, p, I, p, ig, r, ain, r, am. The R sound, or the sound that's represented by the letter R, r, it's not rain, it's r, ain, r, am. And the A sound does get changed a little bit by the nasal that follows it. So the A kind of morphs just a little bit. R, am, s, ad, sh, eep, s, it, s, un. When you get to the level 3 game, I really would recommend that you come back, watch the video again, and practice saying those sounds slowly. If you have any trouble with this, if you have a speech therapist that you know, they're the best people to talk to about how to pronounce sounds correctly. In a previous video, we talked about the routine of a lesson, where you can start with a warm-up and end with a game or a fun learning activity. You can practice phonemic awareness during the warm-up. I would just do it with 3 or 4 words so you don't practice a whole lot, just a few words. And you can also give the practice during the game or the fun learning activity. And that's where you should give students a lot of practice. So if they need to work on this, you want to practice a game for phonemic awareness pretty frequently. During your warm-up, you can practice blending and segmenting with about 3 or 4 words. Select those words carefully. Make sure they're words that are meaningful to your student. You can use the words from our bingo game if you'd like, or you can select words that are related to a topic or a specific book that your child is reading. Be sure they're not too difficult. You want to use those basic steps from the previous slide that goes through step by step of what to say, and then you want to be sure to provide help quickly. One option is, especially if your student is struggling to blend those, is to use the picture cards that go with the bingo game. So you could lay those out so they see what their choices are and can visualize those. There are lots of different games you can play. I'm going to go over our sounds bingo game, but there are lots of ones that you can use to practice blending and segmenting. Make sure that whatever you're doing, that it gives them lots of opportunities to practice during the game. And you can customize the game by selecting words that are not too difficult. And when your student is ready, you can move from first sound and the rest of the word, that blending or isolating just the first sound, to practicing all the sounds within words, or going sound by sound. You want to provide help quickly. If you download our bingo game, you'll have the copy of the directions as well as 5 bingo cards for each level. The directions on the card are very explicit. You can do blending first sound and rhyme, or you can do isolating the first sound with the bingo game. Remember that in our levels 1 through 3, they're just listening and speaking. They're not actually looking at printed words. We're using pictures to represent those words, but we're not using letters yet. But the whole point is to transition to letters, and that we'll do that in levels 4 and 5. I just want to remind you about the video that Dr. Jennifer Cheetah, my co-author, has already posted on our YouTube channel that talks about making any game a reading game. So you can choose your favorite game. You can make a set of picture cards. You can use our bingo game to use those picture cards, or you can make other picture cards, and then you play that game. An easy way to do that is just to draw a card, and then you practice segmenting that word. So another way to do it is for you as a teacher to draw the card. Don't show them what it is yet, and then you say the sounds, and then they tell you the whole word, and you can show them the picture, and then they take their turn on the game. So you can turn any game into a game for phonemic awareness. A super quick reminder here, I have a previous video that talked about these things in more detail, but remember, you want to build good habits, you want to help your student very quickly, and you want to keep it happy. It's really important that you provide that help as soon as they start to struggle, and that will help keep it happy, and smile and praise them for their work. And remember, with phonemic awareness, it takes a while for some kids to master it. You just need to practice. You're going to model, and then they're going to copy you. You're going to model, and they're going to copy you. And then pretty soon you'll see, oh, they're able to do it without me modeling, and they're able to do that on their own. Remember too that in this early stage, in the Friends on the Block levels 1 through 3, that we're preparing to decode. We had a video already about teaching letter sounds. This video is all about phonemic awareness, or blending sounds and segmenting words. Then we're going to have other videos about memorizing a few high-frequency irregular words. We're going to talk about print awareness and meaning, vocabulary, comprehension, oral expression, and how to retell fiction and nonfiction stories. All of these skills you want to work on during these early stages. So in our levels 1 through 3, or in this early stage when you're preparing to decode. I want to answer a couple of questions that you may have. The first one is, why did we choose blending and segmenting? Why not rhyming or other phonemic awareness skills? Well, we chose blending and segmenting because the research is very clear that those are the two most important skills to teach. They lead directly to sounding out and spelling. It's really good to teach the other skills. They have lots of benefits as well, but these two are the most important, and our approach is to focus on the most important skills and to keep things as simple and as streamlined as possible and still have excellent outcomes. You may also be wondering about sound boxes and whether or not you should be using those. These are also called Elkonin boxes. You might be wondering about letters. When do I add letters in? So it's really great to use those sound boxes. The sound boxes are particularly helpful for making this process more concrete for students. So they see a box for each sound and they can move a chip into each box. That's the same reason that I like using my fingers as we do one sound at a time whenever that we're practicing these activities, because that helps make it more concrete. If you find that using your fingers is not enough, or that you think it'd be more fun to use the sound boxes, that's a great thing to do. I'm going to point you to a resource for that on the next slide. It is very important that you take these activities and you add print to them. We do that in level 4. We introduce these easier phonemic awareness skills early without those letters, so we can use a wider variety of words and not worry about how many letter patterns and sounds that the students already know. This image is from the University of Florida Literacy Institute website, where they have lots of different phonemic awareness activities, and they have a wonderful tutorial on using Elkonin boxes or sound boxes. Another resource is from Rollanda O'Connor, this wonderful book called Teaching Word Recognition. There's a whole chapter on phonemic awareness there with more information about the research and different activities that you can do to teach phonemic awareness. I'll put links to all of these below. We do appreciate your support. Please tell others about us on social media. Like us, follow us, share, subscribe. Become a free member on our website. There you'll have access to 17 of our free e-readers, and you'll have some of our games as well as monthly giveaways. Consider making a purchase. Our premium digital membership has a lot of digital materials that you can download and print, and has access to all of our ebooks. We also have physical products, so books and games that are ready to play, instructional kits. Thank you for watching. I hope you and your students have a lot of fun as they learn phonemic awareness.